Tactile reading, sculpture. Voice, Andrea Socrati, accessibility referent. Images, Andrea Socrati, tactile exploration of the discobulus. True copy from Plastercast. The tactile reading of a work of art is not different in terms of procedure from a visual reading. For example, if we look at this statue, we first receive an overall image, sort of a first glance. Then, if we want to better define the image of this statue, we need to shift our focus and grasp all the details in order to have a detailed analysis of the image, a well-done synthesis of the image. Basically, the same thing happens in the tactile reading. Using both hands, it starts with a general and fairly rapid exploration of the entire statue, in order to create in our minds a sort of frame, like a puzzle or a mosaic. After this quick syncretic stage, we need to move on to the analytic stage, in which we slowly explore, always with both hands, all the details of the work in order to understand how eyes, mouth and ears look. Of course, it is necessary and useful to have a verbal support, an explanation of an operator. Basically, we go to explore the statue again, but in a more analytical way. This is the second stage. We go from the phase of syncresis to the one of analysis, just like we saw in the visual procedure. Of course, there is a substantial difference between tactile and visual exploration. It's time. We need time in the phase of analysis. Obviously, a tactile reading needs much more time. It unfolds over time in order to give the hands the chance to slowly sense the details, and finally have, in the mind of the person exploring, the tactile image of the work. Images, Andrea Socrati, tactile exploration of Guernica, relief translation from painting, scale 1:2. The reading of a low or high relief is definitely more difficult than the tactile reading of a statue, of a whole work. This is because the shapes of a high or a low relief undergo some abstractions. Even tactility is obliged to follow the forced path that's made compulsory by the background, where these shapes lie. So it is appropriate and useful to have the verbal support of an operator, to help the person exploring the work by touch, without the sight, to recognize these shapes. Images, Andrea Socrati, tactile exploration of Colloquio Libero di Pietro Consagra, bronze sculpture, height 34.5 centimeters. Contemporary sculpture is undoubtedly able to evoke great emotions during a tactile reading. That's because in the early 1900s, artists began to use diverse materials. They went from the usual marble, wood and bronze to plastic, several types of metals, and so on. All materials have a language. Each one speaks a different language. Only only our hands are able to understand it, appreciating the material, the surface, the texture, the heat or not emitted by a specific material, for example, as in this case, bronze sculpture by Pietro Consagra. A tactile reading allows us to immediately perceive the cold of the material and also the difference between a polished and smooth surface and these more furrowed areas which are rough instead. These are some peculiarities that the work can only tell to a tactile reading. For this reason, if possible, everyone should have the opportunity to use a multisensory approach to sculpture and not only a visual one. Monica Bernacchia, Damiano Boriani, Idea and Coordination, Nastasia Pescatore, Subtitles and Translation, Gamma Presscom, Filming and Editing. Voiceover, Greta Sturm. The accessible version of this video was realized with the collaboration of Rai Pubblica Utilità. IES interpreter Devi Mariotti.